Have you ever been scrolling through the news and seen a headline where someone gets sued for millions, and then another where someone is charged for what sounds like the exact same thing? It can get super confusing, right? Well, it turns out sued and charged aren't just different words, they are portals to two entirely different worlds inside our justice system. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means. So, to really get our heads around this, let's start with a scenario we can all picture. Imagine a driver, speeding like crazy, blows right through a red light and just slams into another car. The victim is hurt, and their car is completely totaled. Okay, so what happens now? What's the next step? When something like this happens, society can't just, shrug its shoulders and say, tough luck. We've built entire systems to try and bring some fairness and order back to the situation. We need a way to deal with the harm done to that specific person, but also to address the fact that this reckless act put all of us in danger. And that brings us to the absolute core of this whole thing. See, when it comes to justice, there isn't just one job to do. There are two, and they're very different. The first goal is to repair the specific harm that was done to the victim. The second is to punish the bad behavior to protect the rest of society and send a clear message: don't do that again. These two different goals lead us down two completely separate legal paths. I want you to picture a big fork in the road to justice. One path is called civil law. The other one, that's criminal law. They can run at the same time, but they've got different rules, different players, and totally different outcomes. And here's a quick look at how different they really are. On the civil side, the whole point is compensation. It's about money to make things right. But in criminal law, the goal is punishment. In a civil case, it's one person suing another. In a criminal case, though, it's the government, the state, against a person. And maybe the biggest difference of all is the standard of proof, which is just how much you have to prove to win your case. And as we'll see, they are worlds apart. Okay, so let's walk down that first path, civil law. You can think of this as the part of the legal system that handles disputes between people or groups. The main idea here is to fix the problem for the person who got hurt. The key word here is compensate. The goal is not to throw someone in jail or punish them, it's to make the victim whole again, at least from a financial point of view. So going back to our car crash, a civil case is all about getting the victim the money they need to cover their hospital bills, fix their car, and make up for any work they missed. And the process is pretty straightforward. It kicks off when one person, called the plaintiff, files a lawsuit against another, the defendant. Then both sides get to gather up evidence, that's called discovery. And finally, a judge or jury makes a decision, which is called the judgment. So how much proof do you actually need to win a civil case? Well, the standard is called preponderance of the evidence. Honestly, it's a much lower bar than in criminal court. All you have to do is show that it's more likely than not that your story is true. Think of it like tipping a scale. Even if you only tip it 50.1% in your favor, you've met the standard. Okay, so now let's back up to that fork in the road and check out the other path, criminal law. This side of the justice system is built on a totally different idea. It basically says that some actions are so bad, they aren't just a problem between two people, they're an offense against all of society. Here, the whole point is punishment and sending a message. It's about holding someone accountable for breaking the rules that we as a society have all agreed to live by. And that's why the lawsuit isn't called victim versus reckless driver. No, it's the state versus reckless driver. The prosecutor is acting for all of us, for the people. The criminal process looks different too. It usually starts with a police investigation. If they find what they think is enough evidence, a prosecutor working for the state files formal charges. And from there, the case heads to trial, where a jury or judge decides if the person is guilty or not guilty. And here it is. This is probably the single biggest difference: the burden of proof. In criminal law, the standard is the highest one we have, beyond a reasonable doubt. This means the evidence has to be so strong, so convincing, that there is no other logical explanation for what happened. Why is the bar so incredibly high? Well, because someone's actual freedom is on the line. And the whole philosophy behind that incredibly high standard is captured perfectly in this famous quote from the legal scholar William Blackstone. Our system is designed around the idea that it is far, far worse to wrongly convict one innocent person than it is to let 10 guilty people walk free. Protecting liberty is priority number one. So we have these two really powerful parallel systems. But how do they actually fit together? How do they work in the real world to deliver justice? Let's bring it all back to our car crash. And this is where it all clicks into place. A single bad act can set both systems into motion at the exact same time. So a reckless driver, they can be sued by the victim in civil court to get money for the damages. And, at the same time, the state can charge that same driver in criminal court for breaking traffic laws. This is how you get situations like the famous O.J. Simpson case. He was found not guilty in his criminal trial, where the jury had to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt. But later, in a civil trial, he was found liable for the deaths because that jury only needed to believe it was more likely than not. One act, two trials, two totally different standards, and two totally different outcomes. So why does any of this matter to you? Well, knowing the difference makes you a much more informed citizen. It helps you understand your own rights if you're ever harmed. It helps you make sense of the news. And it really shows you the delicate balancing act our justice system is constantly performing, trying to take care of individual victims while also protecting society as a whole. And all of this leaves us with one last big question to think about. These systems were designed for a different era. But our world is changing so fast, right, with new technologies, new kinds of crime, and new social challenges. And it really forces us to ask, is this two-path system still the best way to do justice? And more importantly, how will it need to change and adapt for the future?